We are now joined by Marwan Muasher, Vice President of the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and also former Jordanian ambassador to Israel and the USA. Good afternoon, sir, and thank you very much for joining us at TVP World.
Thank you.
So we'd like to begin with our first question, which is about Israel saying that it will enter Rafah regardless of the hostage exchange deal. It's almost 7 months on, and Israel's goal still remains the eradication of Hamas. Is that tenable?
Not only is that not tenable, we've all seen 7 months of war that have not eradicated Hamas. I believe that Israel's real aim is not just to eradicate Hamas, but to also affect a mass transfer of Palestinians from Gaza to Egypt. It is clear that 1.2, 1.3 million Palestinians in Gaza who are trapped in Rafah today have nowhere to go if Israel invades Rafah. They have been prevented from going back to northern Gaza where they came from in the first place. They cannot go into Egypt, and therefore, it's going to be a humanitarian disaster if Israel really goes on and enter Rafah. We are going to have 1.2, 1.3 million potential new refugees. And let's remember, the whole refugee population in 1948, Palestinian refugees, was 700,000. So we are already talking about almost double the Palestinian refugee problem that started in 1948.
Certainly. And of course, the response to this has been rather harsh, to say the least, with tens of thousands of people potentially killed there in the Gaza Strip. Now, I'd like to just follow up on Egypt. So if we look at the situation, it sort of seems to an outsider, someone who may not be involved in all the details and intricacies of the Middle East, and especially the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, that actually Egypt could do more to potentially ease the suffering of these, of these civilians that are, have such dire circumstances in the Gaza Strip. Why has that not been the case so far? And should Egypt open up the borders and allow some of the refugees to come in so that they have better living conditions and can get humanitarian aid?
It's very strange to lay the blame on Egypt. I mean, if the suffering is to end, then Israel has to end its, going into Rafah. Let's remember that Israel has no intention of ending the occupation and establishing a Palestinian state. And also Israel does not have any intention of having a Palestinian majority in areas under its control. And today the number of Palestinians in areas under Israel's control is greater than the number of Israelis. So if Israel does not want a Palestinian state and also does not want a Palestinian majority, then the only alternative it has is to effect a mass transfer from Gaza to Egypt. If Egypt opens the border, it is helping Israel empty the land of Palestinians. Palestinians have learned the lesson from 1948. They do not want to leave because they know that once they leave, they are not allowed to go back. Israel has not allowed the return of even one single refugee who left Palestine then in 1948. And so really the bulk of the blame should be on Israel, not on Egypt, to stop this war.
We have very little time now, but we'd like to ask you about international public opinion, which has clearly shifted since the beginning of this war. We see that there are mass protests at universities, and generally speaking, international opinion has changed. Do you think that this will essentially shift Israel's behavior?
I don't think it will shift Israel's behavior in the short run because of the reasons I mentioned before, but I do think that in the long run, it is clear that international opinion is shifting in support of the Palestinians. The younger you are in age, the more likely you are to support the Palestinian cause. We are witnessing a phenomenon which is similar to the protests in the United States during the Vietnam War. And whereas they did not end the Vietnam War immediately, they succeeded in raising awareness among public opinion that helped indeed end the war after a few years.
Certainly. Now, at the same time, Gaza will need responsible leadership when when the order for hostilities to end, when that happens, and the prospects that leadership, that doesn't seek the death and destruction of Israel. So are there any prospects for this, especially with Hamas in control as they are now?
I think responsible leadership is needed from both sides. You know, after 34,000 Palestinians killed, you cannot say that Israel's leadership is responsible either. We need leaders on both sides to work to end the occupation, because that is the central issue. The issue did not start on October 7. It started long time before that, when Israel occupied both Gaza and the West Bank. And the only path forward that would end all these hostilities is a serious attempt to end the occupation.
Okay, thank you very much. Marwan Muasher, Vice President at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace and former Jordanian ambassador to Israel and the US. Thank you so much for joining us on TVP World.
Thank you.